Live.
All right.
Okay. Welcome to our Random Dialogues Stand Up and Speak for Yourself event. We are live now until 8 p.m. UK time. There are 6 speakers, each sharing a story, a poem, or a message that they feel passionate about. With appreciation to our speakers today, some of whom have never spoken like this before. I'm going to ask them now to introduce the title of their talk, and you can find out more about them in the comments below too. So, Tony, would you like to introduce the title of your talk?
Hi, my name is Tony McMurray, and the title of my talk is National Long Jumper to International Exec.
Thank you, Tony. James.
Hi, my name's James Banfield, and the name of my talk is Our Challenges Become Our Greatest Teachers.
Thank you. Marcus.
Hello, I'm Marcus Hamilton, and the name of my talk is Friendship, Loneliness, and Breaking the Taboos.
Thank you, Marcus. Niall.
Hi, my name's Niall Jones, and my talk is Around the Campfire.
Thank you. Julia.
Hi, my name is Julia Hayden, aka Princess Gaia, and my talk is going to be called The Rising of the Condor.
Thank you. Now, Esme is also joining us, but she doesn't seem to be here at the moment, so let's introduce Esme later on. I'm just going to go back to my... So Random Dialogues was founded in 2016 by Arthur Partridge, rest in peace, and myself, Jane Tyson, to gather community and give them a voice. I continue to run a number of on and offline events across the year. You may like to engage with this live event by introducing yourself in the comments too, asking us a question or two, and even sharing the post to people you may feel who might like to join in and watch now or after. To find out more about us, you can follow the hashtag Random Dialogues. I'm just going to scroll down here. My thing went up. With special thanks also to Paul Langer, who's in the background, live from Australia. He's producing the event. Colin is doodling from South Africa. And Hervé is meditating and sharing his calm from Cornwall. Okay, so the format today. Each speaker has up to 5 minutes each. There'll be 3 speakers to begin with, then time for a short Q&A, followed by the next 3 speakers, then a Q&A and close. It's been referred to as speed speaking. So I'm going to now hand over to the speakers. Is Esme back with us? Esme, are you okay to go first? Because I think we can't see you, so it might be that we go to the second speaker of the event. It is, let me get up. It was Tony. Tony,
I'm happy to take that. I'm going to share my screen.
Thank you.
Hopefully this will go well. Tell me if you can see my screen okay.
Okay, because we're all trying out on StreamYard.
Can you see my screen? Is it a blue screen with a sentence from Rudyard Kipling? Can you see it?
It might be on this. It might be showing. No, can't see it. It might be showing live on the Facebook event. Yes, okay. It's coming up now, but it's very small. Here we go. Yes.
Yeah, you can see it. Okay. Yes. I'll press my clock and I'll start. If history were taught in the form of stories, it would never be forgotten. So I expect in the next 4 minutes, 45 seconds to take you through 35 years from national long jumper to international exec. I'm one of 4 siblings. I was brought up in the small town of Bletchley, made famous by the Enigma computer that cracked the code. There I am in mid-1985s, long jumping more than 7 meters. And you can see there, I fortunately in my youth was a very good sportsman, winning a national title and managing to tour Europe as an international athlete. But those of you who know your sport will also know that Bletchley's from Milton Keynes, and the guy on the left is the Olympic champion Greg Rutherford. And you can see there, I'm only 1 centimeter behind him in the year that I actually managed to jump. 17 years later, he managed to beat me, and 10 years later, he won the Olympic gold. So taking the left side and the right side of my brain, I was very fortunate. I continued my education, working towards international exec. I was a music and sports science pupil at Brunel University. I then took 5 months out and decided to dabble in kibbutzism. In the middle of that, our good friend Saddam Hussein decided to invade Kuwait, so I had to flee the kibbutz and travel around the Middle East. And that was all very good grounding for my start of my exec career back in '93 when I started as an accountant. And you can see there's some sport guys there. In the top right, the accounts I did was Michael Gerson, who are famous for moving the Prime Minister. Throughout this period and taking on my sportsmanship, I decided to be very philanthropic in terms of my fundraising activities. And you can see the various UK charities, having lived UK most of my life and also lived in Australia, South Australia, for 1 year of my life. My wife and I have raised over £100,000, predominantly for the Alzheimer's. There's various challenges there, including the kayaking the length of the Thames. And as I now take you into the 2000s, me and my friends cycled the full length of Land's End to John O'Groats. The most notable one for which I have done many talks is in 2015, I ventured up Mount Everest. And I chose the year when the 7.8 earthquake struck. So on 1 hour, I was 1 hour away from death. So 9,000 people in front of me, and unfortunately 17 people behind me, including our 3 chefs, they perished. So as my wife always tells me, I've got 9 lives, and I'll always remind my wife. She sent me a text saying goodbye to me when she thought I was dead. If anyone's interested in reading the book, I'm featured in chapters 7 and 8. But if I now jumped to the last 2 minutes of my presentation, it's all about the exec. So the grounding was music, sports, science, various crazy challenges. As you can see there, last week or the week before, I celebrated 25 years at Ingram Micro. What do Ingram Micro do? We are the world's largest distributor of technology and supply chain services. The top left-hand corner tells you it's big revenue, but it's very small margins. You've probably never heard of us, but we're in most countries of the world. I've been very fortunate that I've done various jobs in the UK, outside the UK, inside finance, outside of finance. And you can see there, that's like an Instagram, that's an infogram, just reflecting one of my latest jobs in 2011. I was the finance director of the UK. And I was very fortunate to be named in the top 50 CFOs in the UK back in 2017. So as we go into the home straight, as I'm starting to lead towards that executive job, my current job, one thing I should point out, I'm a CIMA qualified accountant. I'm currently finalizing my papers to hopefully become a fellow of CIMA. And just the icing on the cake in my career as a 52-year-old, having just celebrated my birthday last week, is I'm very proud of the fact that I live here in Bulgaria with my wife, and I head up an organization that manages 1,100 people. We service 9 different languages. You can see the map there, and we service the needs of the customers throughout Ingram Micro in Europe. There is the inspiration. God rest her soul. My mother passed away in 2008 with the terrible condition Alzheimer's. I continue to be an inspirational speaker for Alzheimer's when I visit the UK. Tomorrow morning, I'm doing the monthly induction to 44 new people. This is my penultimate slide. It's the slide that I live by. Why feeling uncomfortable is the key to success. Your comfort zone is a beautiful thing, but you will never grow there. Your comfort zone there, I ask each and every one of my staff to go where the magic happens. I'm not asking them to climb the highest mountain in Europe. That's the top of Mount Elbrus in Russia 2 years ago. But each and every day, I'm asking them to go outside their comfort zone. So I do hope that, in the words of Rudyard Kipling, you are remembering this memorable story. National long jumper to international exec. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you very much. Who's got the Yoda? Niall's got Yoda. Can you pass the Yoda to Esme now, please? Esme, are you okay to join us and speak?
Yes, I am now. Everything's all good.
Stage.
Okay, so I'm going to be sharing with you my stories about writing stories. So last year I went online and I wanted to volunteer with a charity, and I got a placement actually with an organisation called Roll Foundation in Bali, Indonesia. I had a whole hectic summer of just festivals. I was working, I wasn't partying, but well, a bit of both. But still. And it was a wild summer, so I was glad to go somewhere with a bit of peace and quiet. So when I arrived in Bali, it was everything I expected. It was like stepping into a jungle book. There was vines hanging from these there's just vines everywhere, and there was different varieties of green. There was leaves that were like smooth and round, and there was textures of fluffy. Anyway, so you get the picture. It was just insane. And yeah, from going from this like really hectic lifestyle to suddenly like slowing down, I was like, whoa, this is like all of my like creative juices started to flow. And the way the Roll Foundation was, so the environmental park worked, was it was on tiers for permaculture reasons. And at the bottom of the park, there was a pond. And in this pond, it was all stagnant water and it was really gloopy and horrible. And I noticed one day that there was a lizard and a toad stuck in there because you couldn't get out of this water tank because it was collecting water. And I gave it 3 days and I thought, okay, maybe they're meant to be in there. But turns out actually they're not. And from there, I thought of a story about if what would the lizard and the toad be thinking, and would they get on? Were they friends? And I then put them in a really lovely looking pond that was next door. And then I created a story that was basically a metaphor saying this is what our world could look like. Our world could be this sludgy, horrible pond instead of the luscious green that was around. And then when I came back home, Corona hit, so we had to, isolate, and again another time and period to slow down. That was one of the positives I soon realised about Corona, was that we could look out the window a bit more when we were brushing our teeth and look at ants trailing past. And then I just realised that how important it is to write all my feelings down, connecting with nature, and how that benefited my mental health. So from that, I created a new project called Environmental Matters. So it's about working on like the internal and then the external environment. And what I'll be doing is I'll be reading a short story on the 26th of September. If anyone wants to come and hear it, it's all online. And it's just about connecting with nature and and maybe I'll read the lizard and the toad as well. But to summarize, of that whole spiel of excitement and talking, is to observe more and look around and take the time to really tune in to nature, because you can find yourself connecting with an ant and being like, wow, actually, what does that ant think? And does that ant have a name? And basically, I just hope you all find the time one day in your lives to write a story about the tales of nature and our friends. Thanks.
Fantastic. Thank you, Esme. Well done. Well done. So the comments are coming up now, so we can see Ian's connecting. So that's, I hope you can all see on the screen now. People will be interacting. So if you're watching this now, please do, say that you're here, or give us a like, or comment below and ask us some questions. Can we hand the Yoda stick? The Yoda. I believe it's James next. Over to James.
Got it.
Good luck.
Good evening. So my name is James Banfield, and as you can see, my company is called The Liberated Mind, and I'm a life coach, hypnotherapist, and an NLP specialist. And my talk is called Our Challenges Become Our Greatest Teachers, because in my observation, actually, a lot of the successful people in the world tend to have come from quite challenging beginnings. And it's that motivation to get out of those difficult circumstances that often motivate and drive people forward to be successful. And that's no different in my case. I was a very confident and very happy child, but unfortunately life threw me a curveball quite early on. When I was 7 years old, my mother passed away from cancer. And to make things worse, the year after that, my grandmother, her mother, passed away from a different kind of cancer. And it had a huge impact on me, to say the least. But I think what really got to me more was the fact that we were always told that they would get better. And one day they weren't. And to a small child of 7 years old, that meant basically the world wasn't a very safe place, and that I couldn't trust anyone. So from that, I developed low self-esteem, a lot of anxiety. And I was raised by my father, who bless him, he didn't really know much about being a dad. He was raised by his grandfather in poverty in Wales, and his way of dealing with it was the same way he was treated, which was basically being very strict, very disciplined, and had a hell of a temper on him. And to a young child, that's quite frightening. No offense, literally he did his best, and I have a fantastic relationship with him now. But if you couple that then with some very severe bullying when I got to secondary school, I was left having very low self-esteem, very socially anxious. And although I hid it very well, life was quite difficult to manage. But one thing about me is I'm very tenacious, and I was determined to free myself and get past all of this. So I threw myself into personal development and self-help. I'd read any book I could get my hands on. I studied psychology A-level, but I had no desire to be a therapist or a coach. I always wanted to be a musician, and that's the only thing I wanted to be. And I did become one, and a music producer and various other things. But I always had this other thing going on in the background, and basically it's turned into a career quite by accident, in the sense that I was on a train one day and I got pretty good at this stuff, and I used to help people because they would open up to me quite naturally. And by the end of that conversation, somebody said, you know what, you'd be a great life coach. I had no idea what that meant, but I looked into it and something came alive in me, and it became clear very quickly that that was what I was supposed to be doing. And I threw myself into that. I would do course after course, study neuroscience, psychology, NLP, and hypnotherapy. And I opened my own practice, and I ended up going into the very music college I qualified in. And I would help the kids there with their mental health. And they would because they would send them in one at a time, like hundreds and hundreds of students. And with my own private practice, I got pretty good at this very quickly. And I developed my own system. And what I realized was, even though people are very unique and have different stories to tell, the programs and the issues and the root causes tend to be very similar. And once you know how the system works, you can help somebody very effectively quite quickly. And I developed something I like to call the Mind Reboot, which is a way of systematically releasing everyone's trauma, their emotional triggers, and their limiting beliefs in a very short amount of time. So my clients don't really need to see me for more than about 4 sessions, because we really just clear everything, and they can continue as a coaching client. But in terms of therapy, they're pretty much done from that moment on. And it's a permanent change, which is fantastic. And I've now gone on to start teaching other coaches and therapists how to do this. And I'm very proud to say that there's at least 25 or so now helping people all over the world. And it's an absolute pleasure to do this. It's not really a job for me. It's more of a calling. I'm very passionate, as you can tell, about mental health. And yeah, that's me basically. So glad to be here. Thank you.
Thank you, James. Thank you to our speakers so far. Now, we have a time now, a 10-minute interval to have some questions and answers. And if our audience are watching and would like to comment or add a question, or if there isn't anything, we can, talk amongst ourselves actually and ask each other questions. So I expect we're all, excited to learn more about each other.
I want to say something because there are no comments. I just want to say thank you, because I think all 3 stories had the same things in it: passion and purpose. So, and I really want to say thank you. And I want to ask more about, passion, becoming purpose, and things like that. All 3 of you, whoever wants to talk.
I don't mind kicking off. Yeah. I believe my passion, actually, I stumbled into it, and my calling, as James touched upon, on the train. Unfortunately, my passion, particularly for the fundraising, came out of the nightmare that is Alzheimer's. So we've all got our calling. We all have our small part to play in the grand scheme of things. So that's on that particular point. I obviously, on the Everest story, which I know Niall has heard, that's got its own little subset, and the rest of my life has gone down little different rabbit holes. But I don't regret any of those callings. It just so happens my most passionate one is the fundraising for the good causes, particularly the Alzheimer's.
What I would say in terms of passion is, I think once you've been in that position yourself and you have a very clear understanding of what it feels like so when I sit opposite a client and I say, I know how you feel, I really know how you feel, and I can't stand to see another human being suffer. So for me, you know, it's something that when you're in the room with me, one way or another, you're going to leave feeling better than when you came in. And that's what motivates me, really. It's a life of service. And I don't think anything brings more joy and happiness than that. So that's where I come from.
I'm on. Sorry.
Esme, did you want to speak about?
I was just curious, James, how you differentiate your personal life and then dealing with other people's struggles. Do you find that sometimes it's quite hard hitting and you get a bit emotional yourself? Because I'm a sensitive person, which is a good thing, but going into life coaching is maybe an avenue I could go down, but I don't know how I would deal with other people's hard, you know, I just want to hug them and I'll be like, oh my gosh.
Yeah, I get that. I don't know how to describe this really. It's like, I do get emotional, like it lights me up when somebody overcomes their issues, but it is very important to be able to look after yourself. So I have a whole kind of system of getting myself in the right frame of mind, meditation. I prepare myself, the room, everything. It's a very structured approach, and it's about being able to be detached enough not to get pulled into their story and to remain back here enough to be able to kind of see, because you can get caught up in someone's story. And although I care deeply about the person that's opposite me, essentially the emphasis of getting better is on them. And yes, I'm right there with them and I'll be there, but they do have to kind of want to get better. And I have to be able to keep my distance enough. But yeah, absolutely, it is emotional. And when people do, a lot of people cry. I tell you, if I had shares and tissues, I'd be a millionaire. But they're usually happy tears, because you can imagine when someone has let go of something, or the release of something that they thought was just going to be there for their whole life, and you see that, there's no way you're not going to kind of get a bit tearful and emotional with that. So it's more like a gift you're giving to somebody. But yes, you do need to be able to distance yourself enough. Be professional.
Thank you.
So if you're just watching us now, this is Random Dialogues Live. We have 6 speakers this evening. We've heard our first 3. We've got a question here from Helen. Helen Jenkins, welcome. Hello. Hi, Esme. I'm a previous counsellor, and I learned I need to find a real balance between deep empathy but also remaining grounded and strong myself. Thank you, Helen. So Helen actually is a school friend of mine, from my sister's school friend, and we did a Random Dialogues recently, actually, and Helen's hopefully will come on and speak with us in the future as well. So thank you for being with us tonight. Esteban, thank you for being with us. How do you deal with resistance to recognising something that hold them? We might have to mull. Can you all see the questions that come up? Same here. Can you all see them? Yeah? Okay. Yeah, that's a skill in itself, says Helen. Okay. So we will be continuing to come back to the comment thread actually after this event. So what we can do is carry on with the speakers, and whilst the event will close around 8, we can come back. So if you're watching this and it's on repeat, please do keep interacting, and we'll get back to you as often as we can and check the messages. So is everyone okay to move on? Okay, I'm just going to go back to the order of speakers so I remember. Okay, so the Yoda, we've got our Yoda doll. Niall, could you please hand it over to Marcus? Marcus, welcome to the stage. Welcome to the platform.
Thank you. Thank
Enjoy.
you. Thank you. All right, so in this talk, I'm going to discuss why loneliness is nothing to be ashamed of, and why friendship is unfairly underrated. So loneliness is a natural human emotion, as we all know. Not only is it natural, but it's also necessary. If we don't eat, we get hungry. Ignore that hunger, and it becomes more acute. And if nothing is done, it becomes life-threatening. Hunger is a necessary warning signal that tells us that we need to feed ourselves. Throughout human history, people have relied on each other by working in collaboration to ensure that shelter, safety, and a good supply of food is always available. We're a social animal. That's not to say we can't enjoy our own company, but at some level, we all need to connect, whether that be with a partner, as part of a family unit, or with friends. When these connections break down or are non-existent, a warning signal kicks in the form of loneliness. Just like the hunger pains, we need to act on that warning. We all know that we all know when our bodies are not nourished, we will die. But what's the worst that can happen if we're lonely? Is it a big deal, really? So studies have shown that chronic loneliness is as bad for you as smoking 15 cigarettes a day. It increases your risk of coronary heart disease, stroke, and high blood pressure. One study suggests that loneliness can increase the risk of premature death by around 30%. So Google loneliness premature death NHS if you don't believe me. And all this is before what loneliness can do to your mental health with depression and sadly even suicide. So loneliness can quite literally kill you. And so, like with hunger pains, it should not be ignored, nor should it be something that we are ashamed of. My view is that loneliness is a deep manifestation of our humanity. That sounds a little fluffy, so let me explain. Loneliness and some of these serious mental and physical health issues that can be associated with it can come about because we are deprived of meaningful social interactions with others. So in other words, as humans, not having strong bonds with others makes us feel sick. As I said, a deep manifestation of our humanity, and therefore absolutely nothing to be ashamed of. Loneliness can affect the rich and the poor, the young and the old. You can be surrounded by people all of the time and still feel lonely. A stay-at-home parent, a university student, a successful busy professional, or a celebrity are all as vulnerable as someone who's living on their own or is very old. The remedy for hunger is food. But what do you do if you feel lonely? You connect with family and friends. You make an effort to keep those strong bonds because, as a singer-songwriter once said, we're only the ones we love. But what if you don't have close connections with your family? Maybe they live in a different country, or you don't have any family anymore. What if you haven't got any friends? It happens. Or you may have moved to one of you may have moved to a new location, or work and or family life may have been so demanding that neither of you found time to hang out like you used to, and that strong connection atrophied over time. As well as trying to resurrect old friendships, if you can, being open to making new friends is also important. Friendship is very important for our well-being. Being able to laugh, cry, and generally connect with someone who is not necessarily our romantic partner is hugely underrated. Most of us feel compelled to find a romantic partner. That deep desire to engage emotionally and physically with someone who is readily admitted to in the form of, I'll say it again. That deep desire to engage emotionally, physically and emotionally is readily admitted to in the form of thousands of dating sites and the likes of Love Island. But what about mates or good chums? Having a romantic partner who we feel deeply connected with is great, but having no friends outside of that is less great, which can lead to loneliness even inside of a happy relationship. How to make friends as adults is not something that I'll have time to cover now, but some tips can be found on my blog at friendo.com. So to conclude then, loneliness is a natural human state of being, which, like hunger, must be acted upon for good mental and physical health. There's nothing to be ashamed of in feeling lonely. It's a manifestation of your humanity. Invest more time in cultivating your connections with others, and if you have few or no friends at all, be proactive in making new ones, as this will contribute to your overall well-being. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you, Marcus. Thank you. Niall, could you pass Yoda to Niall, to yourself. Welcome to the stage.
I really have him here. Okay, so I'm Niall, and I'm Niall Jones. I'm going to talk to you about being around the campfire. And to start, say I am a spaceman, but not that kind. And I've been thinking a lot about 2020, where we are, and how I've been spending mine. And Jane recently asked me if I'd like to give a talk, and if I did, what would it be on? I fairly quickly said around the campfire. And a few weeks later, a friend said to me that I'm standing in the fire, that I'm getting on with it and facing whatever has to be faced just now. That it's kind of admirable, as I understood it. Then some years back, I immersed in a whole world of campfires, a pretty cool campsite that really wanted to express just how special it is to be by one, and by one of many in one place. So using fire and its significance in enabling good spaces is something quite profoundly appropriate for me, and very really resonates. Because to be a little vulnerable, to share something with others, requires some or a lot of discomfort. You see this when people really put themselves into a creative initiative, a story, a song, or a business, really showing their vulnerability. And standing in the fire, for me, is a great way to think of how it feels to be prepared to open up and share, because enabling that deeper connection can get pretty uncomfortable. And standing around the fire, not sitting, represents the idea of active listeners, of whoever is doing that sharing, those paying close attention to what's being said. Being around campfires isn't the only way to be in a space, of course. There are levels of openness, of vulnerability that can be enabled in spaces creation that differ from being around a campfire type space. But the campfire for me is the one where we can perhaps be most fully open once we're comfortable there. And there's potentially a long list of things to share about in such spaces. But the more we do stop to connect in these ways, the more likely we are to want to go on connecting, I believe. The better we'll be able to empathetically communicate, and the more ultimately we'll care about each other, I'm sure. And surely it's a time for that. And in some cases, this behavior might also lead to new and unexpected collaboration opportunities too. So how could you create your own good campfire space, even if it's just a big candle in the middle of a dining table? I suggest to start with quiet reflection time, a simple way to create a separation between the regular world and the kind of campfire world. This may involve some appropriate words or even music, perhaps calming, perhaps to bring strength or to bring a sense of safety, depending on what you're trying to achieve. For me, there's three main kinds of spaces you can create that are clearly distinctive. Creative thinking time, where you see or solve a problem in new ways, or co-create something new. And this is helped because the campfire involves some kind of excursion from regular life, which helps open up new thinking. Then there's empathetic feeling and connecting time, perhaps more personal, deeper sharing work, helped by the fire itself and its hypnotic energy, because you can just look into the flames whenever the words don't come, and when they do, feel free to speak. And connecting, because when you gather in person, the fire provides a physical warmth, which in turn brings a kind of primal warmth of spirit. And finally, there's fun, playful time, which is, for me, it's just about letting go. If you did all these things over one evening, it might be that comes last, where you tell stories and you play music till you drop, potentially. So there's some ideas if you want to try yourself, or you can always reach out and hire me as your spaceman. We can figure something out together. It could be any kind of space, but I particularly enjoy exploring spaces where we simply share what's up. Just having time to do this is quite unusual, and you never know what will come up when you just stop and listen and listen to see what comes out from each person, how we each are. I also love spaces where we creatively express ourselves in all kinds of ways, whether old stories or creative stories, songs, poems, you name it. It's very dynamically expressive, it's fun and so stimulating. Or spaces where we explore our big picture vision in a group, what we're doing about getting there. For example, for me, we should all have an opportunity to clarify what that looks like and try to help each other get there in any way we can, especially now in light of 2020. It's what I had in mind when I started something called Executive Peer Spaces 2 years ago, and I feel it's just more relevant than ever to try to manifest our most authentic, in our own terms, successful potential selves, eventually, however long it takes. And finally, I just want to say to Jane, what you're doing here is amazing. It's truly connecting and really for these times. So thank you very much for this opportunity to stand in the fire with you all.
Thank you. Thank you, Niall. And thank you to our audience. We're getting some nice comments from our audience outside of the platform as well. So thank you very much for being here with the storytellers today. Now I'd like to hand the Yoda over to Julia. Hayden, please. Here you go. May the force be with you.
Oh, it transformed into a dragon.
Welcome.
Okay, hi. My 5 minutes are under the title The Rising of the Condor. And I want to point out that I'm not what people would call a feminist. If there would be a word for me, I would rather call myself a balancist, one who is aware of the beauty which life carries within each of its beings, one who is aware that everything is here for a reason. And if we allow things being and happening in a dynamic flow equilibrium, not going into extremes, this beauty gets the ability to show itself. I always say life is a kaleidoscope. It's only a matter how we perceive it. It's only a matter of the stories we tell ourselves. And this means, as a storytelling therapist, I'm sharing stories. I'm sharing my own stories and those of others, stories of beauty, of trust, of love. And the ancient parable of the Amazon, which had me choose this title, Rising of the Condor, is one of these stories. It's an ancient story about the American continent, in which it was said that 500 years ago, long before the North and before the arrival of the Europeans, the time was one of union, a union between the indigenous peoples of the South and of the North. It was the time of the condor and the eagle flying in the sky together. A beautiful picture, because the condor represented the indigenous peoples of the South and the eagle represented the indigenous peoples of the North. The peoples lived in harmony with each other and with nature. The condor and the eagle qualities complemented each other well. All living things were included as stakeholders in a collective, mutual, and abundant life for all. Nowadays, we have adapted to the ancient story of the condor and the eagle and gave them feminine and masculine qualities. I want to point out some of them, and I also want to point out the spiritual powers which both animals carry within each other. So the eagle spirit animal has qualities in the shamanic tradition such as freedom, great spirit, higher perspective, independence, keen sight, liberation, and vision quest. The eagle given masculine qualities stand for stability, decisiveness, confidence, and structure. And they support us to stay focused, to plan, and to stay on our path. Some of the condor's qualities as spirit animals are confidence, creativity, prophecy, renewal, soul progression, spirit communication, and wisdom. And the condor given feminine qualities are representing compassion, creativity, gentleness, humility, and they are of nurturing, intuitive, and faithful notion. Both of them in a balance with each other within our society would make a great companion and would let us live beautifully in a humble and diligent way, on a joyful path which allows us to let go of control and to stay focused at the same time. It releases us from expectations of the outcomes of our acting, and it still gives us the opportunity to dwell in visions. Both as a union, this was once long before the Europeans conquered the American continent. Then they did. The indigenous North gave in and had no choice but adapt to the European way of life. The indigenous South fled into deep forests and kept on resisting the invasion of civilization globally up until today. We have created a world of assertiveness, competition, and exploitation of ourselves and others by pushing beyond our limits. We confront others, we envy, we become so analytical that we start losing trust of our intuition, curiosity, and intrinsic motivation. We behave as if we're egoistic robots. We have lost touch to our inner essences, to our emotions, to our creativity, and to our lightness of just being. We struggle with adjusting to change and coping with daily challenges, and we forget about a balanced way in expressing our everyday needs, love, and gratefulness. By now, the time has come that we human beings have not only realized this imbalance, but that we begin to act on behalf of allowing a new balance to arise among us. And yet, as we are wounded by long years of exploitation, injustice, oppression, and greed, we start craving for that new balance, which might cause yet another imbalance. I emphasize that because we human beings are known for extreme actions. We are either for something or we are against another. Yet this pro and contra creates the next imbalance, the next suffering. It is essential that the condor, once we have seen it on the horizon again, can stay slow, attentive, and be patient on its way back to encounter the eagle flying. The feminine qualities among us need to allow the masculine qualities their very space while they themselves find back into a playful collaboration. The potential to reunite is now. Let us reconcile eagles and condors, women and men, with masculine and feminine qualities. Mother Earth and Father Sky, all of us. Let us listen and let us heal. Finished.
Beautiful ending. Fantastic. Wow, you're all awesome. That's amazing. Thank you. So,
Hi, Kenneth.
I would like to welcome our other team onto the stage. Colin is in the background with Hervé. Paul, I don't know if you can be seen, or I know Paul's been producing behind the scenes. So if they come back onto the stage for the final kind of 10 minutes of Q&A before we wrap up. So let's have a look at the questions that have been coming in. Thank you for joining us, Kenneth, and thank you for being here, Ian and Helen. You can all see the comments. I don't know if anyone would like to respond to any of them. You can all read them, yeah.
I want to introduce Kenneth. He's one of the Gaia storytelling crew. Hi, Kenneth.
Hi,
Thanks.
Kenneth. Thanks for being here. I've met Kenneth before, haven't I?
Yes.
On the Storytelling for Gaia events.
Yes.
I can respond on something if you like.
Yes, that'd be wonderful.
Just to respond on the point about how we can use spaces to help people feel less lonely. I mean, I'm very deeply immersed in trying to make the world more like that, and whether we do that using existing or new technologies or new ways of, for example, that this could be happening on a much bigger scale. I think sort of sharing stories is a really cool, creative, fun way for people to connect. But there are many other ways, and I absolutely agree that we could be using it much more, especially in these times, to connect while we're all virtually so separated. So. Yeah.
Thank you. And it's certainly an intention with the Random Dialogues crew and yourselves that I would very much like to take this experience into organisations and beyond, and kind of work somehow after this together to enable that to happen. Don't know about the direction yet, but that's the direction I would like to take with it. So if you're watching and you would like us to come and speak within your organisation, we're a team you've heard us speak, so we'd love to come and create this space for you too. Hervé, thank you for joining us from the backstage. You're part of the Random Dialogues crew. You're unmuted. Is Colin with us? Colin's not on the stage. He might be in the background. He's been doodling and capturing the stories on doodles. So he's live from South Africa. So he might be having internet difficulties. But after this, we'll also be sharing the doodles. And I would also like to invite the speakers to, if they wish to, we can create a sort of PDF from this experience and make it into an ebook for our viewers as well, which we can offer perhaps as a download, or we can take in some direction. Hervé will probably be more knowledgeable about that than I.
So Jane, I just want to say thank you. This is
Oh, you've gone. Colin is listening from afar. Hello, Colin. You're doodling from afar. Julia, you broke up then.
Okay, sorry. So, it's like speed. Do you hear me?
Yeah.
It's like speed dating, speed speaking, and I really enjoy it, and it's very awesome. If we're groups of people and everybody has their 5 minutes, it's a lot, but it's I mean, we all share the same narrative and we all share different stories, so that's beautiful. Thank you, Jane.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for inviting us too. And you can, if we want to find out more about all the speakers here, there is at the top of the thread, I've put their names, and in the Random Dialogues page, you'll find their tags too. But after this event, please do write where we can find you, and find out more about your writings and what you do, etc. All of you, because I know that you've all got wonderful projects you're involved with, and I'm sure the audience would like to connect with you more too. Thank you, Colin. He says great stories and wonderful content. Okay, do we have any more questions or comments from the audience or from our speakers?
I can respond on one more point about friendship. I just wanted to say that I think, of course, like deeper connection breeds more friendships, if you like. And when we're in that state, we're more likely to be supportive of each other or want to work together. And that would be true in normal times, but in these times where the sort of stress levels are so much more acute, it's all the more important to try to take time. You have to take the time to create those spaces where you can build perhaps new relations, new friendships. And so absolutely, I also agree with this point about let's all be friends.
Just to build on that as well, I would say that the talk about loneliness from Marcus, I thought that was so poignant, and the connection from Niall. Right now, what people aren't talking about is the mental health crisis that we have. During lockdown, suicide levels were through the roof. People didn't have that connection. Their routines were shot. They lost a lot of jobs. This is so important. One of the things I want to say, connection is, I think Marcus said it all there. Loneliness is a big problem, and people don't really talk about it very often. And any events like this, or just having routine and making sure that you are regularly connecting with people is so important, because even though there are lots of specialists out there, a lot of people don't want to put their hand up and say, I need help. And or they can't afford it. So, I mean, I do a lot of pro bono work, but, people have got to put their hand up and at least admit they need some help to start with. So connection's so important. So I would just encourage people, the stigma has to be let go of, and people have to start asking for help, because it's actually a strength, not a weakness. And there are so many people out there, and there are a lot of free resources available too. So don't suffer in silence. Please do connect, even if it's with just a friend, and hang out rather than overload them with your problems because they're not trained professionals, but just make sure you are connecting. That's what I would say.
Yeah, 100% agree with that, James.
Thank you.
And Marcus obviously has a platform, don't you, where that's enabling that as well. So, once you comment in the thread, we'll find out more about Frindo as well. And if people want to kind of go over to and have a look at what you're all about and how you're bringing people together, I think that'd be really beneficial.
I want to say something too, because it's, as you said, it's all about friendship, but the first friendship that happens, it's the friendship between us and ourselves. So, I'm a body whisperer in Germany, and it's very important that we reconcile with our inner selves in order to being able to feel this love for ourselves, and then to bring it out into the world. And this means egoism, or taking care of ourselves is no egoism, because it's on behalf of everyone. And yeah, we are all one. And if every one of us is healthy, then the whole world can be healthy. So yes, so everybody please ask for help, because therapists and coaches can only work with you when you ask. We cannot jump onto tasks which are not ours. We need to be asked. Yeah.
If I can add to that, I mean, Gaia, your particular talk touched a nerve, so to speak, because we've had a close friend, unfortunately, pass away because he was lonely, given his circumstances during lockdown. And I'm sure that everyone listening or on this talk today must have gone, whether they want to admit it or not, there were moments in the 12 weeks or 16 weeks when they had more time to reflect, because basically we all got off that crazy treadmill and we slowed down, a bit like going on holiday. Not that it was a holiday for anyone. We all had that space to literally reflect on where we're at, where we've come from, where we're going. And I'm sure some people went into some small dark places that they wouldn't normally, because their head's full of all the other things we're racing around doing. So whether it be Marcus's story, James, or yourself, Gaia, and Niall, those stories really did resonate, I think, well with the last 3 to 6 months, wherever you are in the world.
It's all the more reason to reach out to other people when you're in that lonely state, and the world is changing so fast around us. Just so incredibly fast. In that micro way, it might be impacting you, and the macro way, the world's changing. So absolutely, so important to be in contact with others, and at least just listening to each other, if not making big decisions.
With Random Dialogues, we also have quite random meetups. That's the whole point. And over lockdown, we were meeting on a Wednesday regularly, and things have shifted a little bit more now. So I am putting on a kind of event every now and then where we just come together, like listen, have conversations. So there's a speaking event once a month for people to come and share a story on the platform like today. There's also the opportunities to just come and meet, be together and see what we can, often the magic occurs, through that connection and that creativity and that, having that space just to, with no particular agenda, but just giving each other a voice and a listening time. So I'd love to invite you along to join us for those spaces too. Yes, thank you. So I would just like to invite the speakers and the audience to, if I go around, to just share maybe a word or two just to close on this experience for themselves, or a word that sort of comes to mind from being here today. And if you're watching in the audience and you would like to write a comment too, that'd be wonderful, and I'll read them out. So would anyone like to do that and share?
I would just say connection and sharing. I think that's, human beings need to do that. We don't do it enough. And yeah, not be afraid to connect. I think one thing I noticed during lockdown was when people actually went by each other, they actually started to actually say hello and smile, because it was like, I see another human being. And I think it's reminded us just how important that connection is, and that not be rushing around and actually just stop and connect. Yeah.
Thank you, James.
Yeah, I think following on from James's point there, I think what, if anything, if we learn anything from this whole coronavirus thing, is that connection is very, very important, right? So people have had to be locked down on their own, or not see their family members, not see their friends. And, they say that you don't miss something until you don't have it, right? And so when you don't have that anymore, that's when it becomes really important. So coming out of lockdown, should we get to a state where, we can move about a lot more freely than we can now, then I hope that what we've learned from this period stays with us, that, friends and family are very important. Those bonds are worth keeping strong.
Thank you, Marcus.
I want to jump in here and say, let us not just tell stories and listen to stories. Let us be the stories. Let us own our stories and own our actions. And let these stories be full of trust, of love, of joy, of compassion. And the more we bring out into this world, it's like a butterfly effect that can cause a tornado on the other side of the world. The more of stories of love, of trust, of joy, of compassion we bring out, the more vibes will enter this planet. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim.
But
I just want to say,
go on, Noel.
Go on, sorry, Tony. Okay.
You go.
So I wanted to say, I think it's really, really cool to be part of this. It's very ambitious. I've run a dinner group where you have a sort of TED speaker and then a long conversation for an hour. So to try and to sort of achieve that in a short time, it's really, really bold, and it's been great to be part of it. And I think the potential for it is huge, because there's at least a mini TED talk in all of us, if you want to put it that way. And stories are such a powerful way to telling the story you want to tell, whatever that might be. Such a powerful way to communicate for all of us. So really well done, and I thought it's a great thing to be part of.
Thank you, Noel.
Yeah, to echo Gaia's point about the storytelling, and also to echo Niall's point, we've done a couple of TED Talk sessions, and they ranged. Obviously, there was one extreme was the Everest story that I shared, and one lady just shared a story about being a one parent mother, and just the trials and tribulations. Everyone has got a story, no matter how big or how small the story is, and just telling that story it just gives confidence, because the next time they do it and the next time they do it, I've just seen it so many times grow. I was at the beginning. I was the guy in the corner, the ginger-headed guy back in the 80s who didn't want to stand up in front of people. But the more times I did it and the more stories I had to tell, it just gave me more and more confidence. So definitely, to your point, Gaia, the storytelling, it just taps into something, because we've all got a story to tell. Yeah,
and the strapline for Random Dialogues is because everyone has a story. Thank you. Okay. Paul Langer, I don't know if you can come back on the stage so we can just have a wave at you. I don't know if that's possible and we can say goodbye quietly because I know you can't speak because your son is sleeping in Australia. Your 8-year-old son's asleep. I don't know if you can pop back on. And I'll just see if there's any more comments. Thank you very much again to our audience. Thank you for being here today. Thank you, Paul. Let's give Paul a wave. I know he can't speak. And I think we'll leave the live broadcast studio now and then we can return and continue our little conversations after. So should we all say a wave and a goodbye and see you for the next Stand Up and Speak for Yourself event next month?
Ben, you're great.
Ciao. Auf Wiedersehen.
Auf Wiedersehen.